Hello everybody and welcome to the King's Monologue. It has been a little while since our last video, but I'm really happy to be back. As you can imagine, it's been really crazy. It's not like I haven't been doing anything. I've been doing lots of different work on content and reconstructions that I'm going to be posting, in a staggered means over the next few days, hopefully. But I just haven't had an opportunity really to get down in front of the camera and to record, so I'm doing that today. I really wanted to share with you my latest reconstruction. As you can see from the title of the video, it's Akhenaten. Now, it's a little bit ironic because the last reconstruction I did before this was the Djoser reconstruction, and if you've watched that video, you know that I waxed lyrical on and on about the fact that I'm moving away from the Amarna period and it's so good to be doing something different, and now I'm back doing Akhenaten again. I think the biggest reason is because I'd already done a lot of my research on Akhenaten, and this was a reconstruction I actually started a little while ago. When I had a bit of free time one day, I just finished the reconstruction and it just made sense for me to post this video. So here I am again, back on the Amarna period, back in the 18th dynasty. I hope it's not Groundhog Day for you too much. That being said, look, I'm not going to downplay the fact that I've really looked forward to the opportunity of actually reconstructing Akhenaten and sharing him with my community. For the longest period, I'll be honest with you, I did mention Djoser in the last video, but I'd say the next most impactful piece of artwork for my early journey into ancient Kemet and into the Nile Valley civilization certainly was Akhenaten. If you've just been exposed to what history books give you and what we learn in schools and what we learn growing up in this watered down, Eurocentric, skewed perspective of what ancient Egypt is, we don't come across the images of Akhenaten. And when you do, as an African, you feel a kinship towards some of Akhenaten's artwork and some of the Amarna period artwork. And so I've always in the back of my mind thought to myself, it would be really good if someone had done a reconstruction of that. And obviously, lo and behold, a couple of decades later, and look, this is exactly what I'm doing now. So I'm quite excited to present this to you. Now, Akhenaten himself is a very interesting character because this is one of the characters that we're kind of given a bit of a narrative about. So it's not just the name. It's said that he introduced monotheism into ancient Kemet. Now, I'm not sure how much of it I have to take it with a pinch of salt because a lot of the stuff that we're told about ancient Kemet isn't necessarily true. In terms of the actual data we have, it's quite scattered, and essentially what often happens is we're embellishing and we're fabricating and we're creating narratives around what is essentially very scattered amounts of information. So the idea is that he introduced monotheism. Now, they also speak about that the reign of Akhenaten being the time when perhaps the Hebraic faiths, or the Abrahamic faiths, got their story or got their kind of ideas of monotheism from. Now, I'm not going to go into lots of great detail about that in this video because I think it's placed for another time because we're just going to do reconstruction in this video. But what's quite interesting is I think it's Anthony Browder has a really interesting book that I was reading earlier, and it's got some passages from Psalms 104 and how they almost word for word correlate with passages from Akhenaten's tomb, I believe it was. The idea, or at least the communication here being that the very foundation of the Hebraic or Abrahamic faiths perhaps was Atenism, or this religion of Aten. If you research the etymology of the word Aten, it's the same word that we get the word Adam and we get the word atom from, or at least the Greeks got the word atom because the M and the N was sometimes interchangeable in Meduneta language. When we look back into the ancient Egyptian or the ancient Kemetic religion, many of the gods, or the Negers as they called them, were actually just personifications. So they weren't, literal gods to be bowed down and worshipped. A lot of them were just ways of explaining matters of nature. They were given, personalities and traits so that we are then able to recall stories, and those stories tell us truths about the nature or the science that we're surrounded with. But just going back to this whole idea that Aten seems to be the birthing place of the monotheistic faiths that now dominate our world, which is really interesting. And the timelines also kind of line up, not exactly, but we know that the New Kingdom era would have been in and around the period of time. So the story of Moses is aligned more with Ramesses, and obviously Ramesses is actually Ra-Moses. The ancient Egyptian language didn't have any vowels in the written language, so we often kind of like embellish that with our own vowels. And we know that Moses is related to Ramesses, or the period of Ramesses. There was even speculation about whether or not Akhenaten might very well be Moses, which obviously I do not think is the case. It's quite interesting to share these things, because if you actually look at the life of Akhenaten, it's actually quite significant as to where religion sits, where the role of science and religion coalesce into one. A lot of this has been determined by the acts of this one ancient Kemetic ruler from thousands and thousands of years ago. So when you think about it in that context, it's actually he's had quite an impactful life. He's had a life that's gone on to have, you know, significant influence on later cultures that came so much further down the line. So it's quite amazing, really. But that being said, I'd like to now get into my reconstruction. I think reconstructing Akhenaten is quite a process. Unlike the reconstruction of Queen T, where I have this one or single amazing bust, I could say quite similar for King Tutankhamun. Those reconstructions are quite easy because there was, in both cases, a single true bust that I could kind of fall back on and say, yep, this is what I'm going to use as my kind of source of absolute truth for the appearance of this person. So in their cases, it was quite simple. Akhenaten was a little bit more tricky and a little bit more difficult because he has lots of statues, but some of them are very artistic, some of them are realistic, but they're incomplete. And so there was this kind of puzzling job that I had to do, where I had to kind of pull features from here and pull features from there and bring them together and say to myself, okay, what is realistic here, what's not realistic? So to bring you to the start of this process, I started off with these quite iconic portraits or statues of Akhenaten, and there's several of these. They're not all the same, and they're all done in a very similar style. I couldn't make these realistic. So my initial reconstruction took on this form. So you can see that this form, I did quite like where it was going, in that I could relate the two together. I was kind of getting that uncanny valley look. I don't know if you've heard about the uncanny valley, this idea that something's really close to being human but isn't quite human, and as a result it ends up being a bit creepy. So I don't know if you've seen a series called Arcane on Netflix, or Into the Spider-Verse. That's what this kind of looked like to me. So I had this reconstruction. It looks okay, but it doesn't look human. I can't put this out to my community and say this is what he looked like, because it's kind of like, what we're doing now? Are we creating cartoon characters? So obviously instantly I was like, well, that won't do. So I started to fall back on some of the more naturalistic portraits, and I'd say this portrait probably is the one that had the largest impact on the final reconstruction. It's a very naturalistic portrait. It looks very human. There's kind of no question marks in and around the stylism around this. You could say with, you know, a great degree of confidence that this is what the human version of Akhenaten looked like. You can see where they were going, or kind of see what the implications were with the more stylized artistic version, and you can almost still see that it's the same person, but now we've got the more true depiction of what Akhenaten looked like here. There were also some really nice little bits and pieces around that I could use. So there was this fragment of his nose and lips, which is highly detailed, which I used, overlaid it, and I used it as a reference point to really get the fine points of how his lips should be shaped. One of the portraits that had a massive impact on me actually is the statue of Akhenaten with Nefertiti. And one of the reasons that this kind of statuette had a major impact on me is because I thought, looking at this, my kind of idea is that this is him later in life. You know, instantly someone will look at that and say, well, that's not the same person. I would say, oh, well, no, it probably is. In our youth, we have this kind of narrowness, this thinness to our face. But then as the years pass, and not to understate the fact that Akhenaten and Nefertiti had 7 children, I believe, 6 daughters and 1 son. If you are to believe, here's another controversy. Many people believe that Tutankhamun was Akhenaten's brother, not his son, but some people believe that Tutankhamun is Akhenaten's son. So this is where it's kind of like, you know, there's so much controversy around this. None of this is straightforward, but if we're going on the basis that Tutankhamun is Akhenaten's son, then that's 7 children that Akhenaten and Nefertiti had 6 daughters and Tutankhamun, which is, you know, a massive amount of kids. Here they are later in life, and the reason I bring this up is because this gives me great insight as to whether or not I'm producing the right thing when I'm creating the reconstruction. So I look at this and I see, I don't know what you see, but I see he looks like one of my uncles, to be totally honest with you. So I just wanted to bring you into my development process there, as I always do, so you can kind of understand the different features and the different things that I'll be bringing in. And I think that's it really. So I would like to kind of now show you what my reconstruction of a young, I'm going to say young Akhenaten because I might do an older one soon, but I want to show you what my young Akhenaten looks like, and that looks like this. So Akhenaten has this really strong chin that is consistent across all of his portraiture, that is really important, was included. You could see it in the portraits of his older life, you could see it even in these kind of more exaggerated portraits, but it's something that he obviously was very aware of, something that he knew, and something that's consistent across all the works. So it was really important to make a statement about the strength of that chin. So just to show you once again, I think I mentioned before, the major portrait that took a lot of prominence in how this should look was this portrait. It was quite a perfect overlay. We don't have a skeleton or a mummy for Akhenaten. I believe they have KV55. I haven't actually even looked at the images of KV55 to see if they're overlay. That actually would be a really interesting thing to do, so I might do that if I do another Akhenaten video down the line. I am digressing now, but yeah, so you can see here overlays quite well with this statue, and also you can see where I've got kind of, as I overlay the fragment, you can see how that was used to kind of shape the mouth, and there also is the other aspect of this older, or this kind of more mature looking Akhenaten, which was used to kind of inform the nose a little bit, because I had very conflicting messages with the different noses, so I kind of had to take all of the noses into account, look at what he looked like older, because I think this statue of him and Nefertiti is a very naturalistic statuette, and then make a decision about what his nose looked like. And I think this was the right choice for his nose. To me, now I'm going to raise the issue of complexion now, because I know the complexion is going to be an issue for some people. To me, it's not. To me, it feels right that he has this. And the reason I say that is, first of all, looking at his parents, we already know Queen T is the mum, the dad is Amenhotep III, and they are both very, for all intents and purposes, with the information, the data we've been given, we can assume they're both very melanated Africans. Now, obviously I go on and on about African phenotypic diversity on this channel, so I would be amiss to say that, two dark-skinned Africans can easily produce a lighter skinned African with completely different feature set. We know that, okay? So I'm not saying 2 + 2 = 4 all the time. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, I think it just felt like this was the right complexion for him. If you look at his son/brother Tutankhamun, you can see what his complexion was like on Golden Throne. This is purely a reconstruction based on artwork, so there's got to be some kind of artistic liberty here. To me, if you look at the face is incredibly Nilotic. So I'm seeing Uganda, but I'm also seeing Somali in this face. I'm not sure exactly where it sits, but it's somewhere in that kind of blue Nile / Horn of Africa kind of range, and I really like it. There's got to be a degree of controversy with these more known Egyptian figures, because Eurocentrism has been doing its darndest over the past few decades to flood the internet and to flood the mainstream with false reconstructions. I mean, if you look at the feature set on Akhenaten, to me, there's just no, I could say look at the feature set, you could also just look at all of the Amarna artwork on the tombs and the walls. These are, obviously, we know on this channel, these were definitely Africans, but I think seeing the African reconstruction is equally as impactful, if not slightly more impactful, than just knowing that. So there you go, that's my reconstruction of King Akhenaten, the heretic, as they call him. Like I said, pinch of salt with everything that you hear there. Is he the heretic king? I don't know. What we do know is he certainly had a massive, massive impact on the way that we view religion to this day. So I hope you've enjoyed it. By the way, if you're wondering about this very fine piece of apparel that I'm wearing at the moment, these are available below. I made these essentially because people were asking me. I get lots and lots of comments of people kind of asking me about releasing some shirts or merchandise. I thought, why not do it? Now, I do want to make a couple of notes, obviously, to my community. A lot of people will switch off at this point. I'm going to see my YouTube ratings go, woo! But I feel like I need to kind of like press home. The prices down there aren't super cheap. I know you can get like t-shirts for like, you know, $20 and £20. The reason they're not cheap is because I've ordered samples from all of these different places that I'm selling from, and I made sure that the quality was really, really good. I don't see the point personally in, you know, forwarding people or at least encouraging people to spend money on something that's really poor quality and not going to last just to save a few bob. I prefer to give you something that's premium and give you the price there that's realistic for a premium item, but when you get it you go, this is dope. So I've spent a lot of time doing those designs. I did mention at the top of the video that I've been away for a little while. Well, this is one of the things I was doing. I thought, let me just get some designs going. I'm going to try and kind of keep that shit moving and continue to kind of like put in, as I make new reconstructions, to kind of create the t-shirt designs to go with them. If you want to look fly, please do purchase them. It will be supporting the channel, but please don't just buy them, you know, to support the channel. Buy them because, you know, you think it would make a really good gift, or if you want to walk around and look. I'm wearing it now. You can see what I mean about the premium kind of wear. To be honest with you, I was looking at myself in this video and I was like, this is the flyest that I have ever looked on the King's Monologue channel. Like literally this top fits real nice. So, you know, I'm quite confident in saying, you know, if you want to cop it. I left this to the end of the video because I don't want to seem like I'm pushing merch on my community. It's certainly not the case. Buy it, don't buy it. Honestly, I'll be honest, between me and you, this, you know, having the upkeep of the shop, there's no overheads. It's not costing me a penny. So don't feel obligated to buy it to do me a favor. But if you do like the designs and you do want to kind of like, you know, a King Tut t-shirt or Queen T t-shirt, then you know where to go to get them. Okay, so that's that. I do need to obviously take a bit of time to thank my patrons. I've got a fastly growing Patreon community and you guys are such a motivation for me. I do appreciate everyone who's subscribed on the channel. So all of my subscribers, we're going to continue to grow, and I've got another video, Nefertiti, coming after this one. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for tuning into the King's Monologue, and I'll see you on the next one.